friends, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Life from Mars. It is your girl Marissa. Very happy to have you back for another episode. You know, I got some more great content for you. So today we are going to be talking about easy ways to reduce your amount of waste. Yes, as I would assume most of us are probably aware, especially in the Western world, we tend to produce a lot of waste for a multitude of different reasons, right? We're always throwing stuff away. We have single-use plastic. We only use things for a certain amount of time. We don't have good quality things, right? So we're constantly just going through things, and you probably produce more waste than you even think. According to studies, the average American produces 1,704 pounds of trash every single year. That is about 3 times the global average, all right? So it's no secret that especially Americans, we definitely have a problem with throwing things away. There's so much trash and so much pollution in the world. A lot of it ends up in waterways, in the ocean. There are just so many problematic things, obviously, that come with the fact that we are producing ridiculous amounts of waste every single day. So today I'm going to be giving you some really easy and simple tips that you can just kind of tweak into your everyday lifestyle to really help you start producing significantly less waste. The little things make a huge difference over time, and that is something that's super important to understand. Every single time you as an individual make a decision, you are single-handedly contributing to a bigger pot of helpfulness when everyone starts contributing these little things. So don't think that you as an individual are not making a difference. You really are. You are also setting an example for the people around you and hopefully inspiring others to also make changes in their lives as well. So in order to talk about this, we are actually going to be dividing it into 5 categories, which happen to be what is known as the 5 R's. So some of you may have heard of the 3 R's, right? So we have reduce, reuse, and recycle. But since then, it has kind of been expanded to 5 R's, so it is reduce, reuse, recycle, and also rot and refuse, okay? So we're gonna go into each of those categories, kind of talk about what they mean and what you can do in each of those categories to help reduce the amount of waste that you are producing. So first, we are going to be talking about refuse, all right? So this is the first and honestly biggest step. This one makes such a huge difference. So what does refuse mean? It means kind of exactly what you think. It just means to refuse the things that you don't need. So examples of this would be plastic bags, right? This is a big one. If you were in a store and you carried something to the front, you don't need a bag to carry it to your car or inside of your house, right? Or you can also bring your own reusable bag. So anytime we can refuse any kind of single-use plastic like that, we definitely just want to say, no thank you. Same thing goes with plastic straws. Obviously, I know some people do actually need to use straws for medical reasons, but the vast majority of us, we don't need the straw, right? You could just as easily just drink from it regularly. Or if you really like straws, there's so many different reusable straws that are super cheap that you can get online. So really, there's no excuse. There's metal straws, silicone straws, bamboo straws, so many different kinds of materials. So really the options are endless. Other examples of things that you can try to refuse are single-use plastics and also single-use cutlery. So you know, maybe you're getting some food to go, right? And the restaurant asks you, do you need utensils? You know you're going right home and that you have regular metal utensils at home, but you might just say yes anyway, right? Because it's easier just to rip it out of the bag that's probably also plastic, right? Use it and then throw it away. So again, that's a very simple way in which you can just kind of say, do I really need this? And I mean, if you are going to be getting plastic cutlery, at least try to reuse it, but we're gonna get to that in a little bit. Some other things that you can refuse that you might not think of right away are junk mail or promotional freebies. So a lot of the times when maybe you subscribe to certain companies or you maybe join a mailing list or whatever, sometimes companies will offer to send you things, right? Or you might be on junk mailing lists and not even realize, but you just kind of never take yourself off the list. So obviously every single time you're receiving something like that, it is a lot of waste of paper, right? And that again makes a huge difference in the long run. So pretty much the golden rule that you can think about when you think about refuse part of all of this is you want to try to refuse any item that is only going to be used for a short time and will eventually end up in the trash. So These are some examples of those things, but it really can apply to other things as well. Another very important thing to consider is that refusing does not only mean refusing other things, it also means saying yes to sustainable alternatives. So we already mentioned, right? Reusable shopping bags, reusable totes, reusable straws, reusable cups, reusable cutlery, reusable water bottles, reusable thermoses. The next category that we are going to explore in how to reduce your waste as well, reduce. So what does reduce mean? This is kind of the next step after we refuse, right? So reducing means that we are reducing the amount of things that we actually need. So some examples of this could be to donate things that you no longer use or to sell them. We definitely don't want to throw things away, right? That's kind of contrary to the point. But if you have some clothes or any other items in your house that you're just really not using, you definitely want to just try to minimize and help someone else get use out of it who would actually use it. Another thing is to kind of just try to reduce impulsive shopping, and when you do go shopping for groceries or for clothing or whatever else that you want, that you're shopping with a purpose, right? You're not just mindlessly buying things, you're not just getting things just to kind of fulfill a whim, right? You're actually buying with a purpose. This again helps to make sure that you're only getting what you actually need. Another really big and important part of the reduce part is that you want to try to reduce your reliance on environmentally damaging and problematic industries. So some examples of this can be fast fashion. Fast fashion is a hugely problematic industry. Did you guys know that fabric is actually one of the biggest polluters in the entire world? So many clothes get thrown away every single day because of the advent of fast fashion, right? We kind of have this cycle now where people just buy super cheap clothing that only lasts for, a short period of time, and eventually it has to be replaced, and so you're constantly buying new things. A lot of people end up just throwing away their old clothing. And even if you don't do that, many people do not realize that if they are donating to certain companies, that doesn't necessarily mean that their clothes are even actually going to be used. For example, Goodwill, all of the clothes that they do not choose to sell in their stores, they ship it to countries like Haiti and other third world countries where it just piles up or ends up in landfills, okay? So it's very important, again, that we are conscious of what our actions are actually producing in the long run. Other problematic industries that you really want to try to reduce your support of can include GMOs, highly processed food, animal agriculture. All of those are highly problematic to the environment and have been well researched. It's also best to try to avoid high chemical products because, again, when those kind of products end up in landfills or end up in waterways, it can produce a lot of environmental damage. So, before you purchase something, think about, where did this item come from? What is in this product? If you have to turn it over and you have to look at the ingredients, do that. That is okay because you are becoming a smarter and more conscious consumer. And like I said, it is those little things, those little choices between, maybe a more environmentally friendly item versus a very highly processed or intensely, high chemical item. Those are the choices that make all of the difference in the long run. And finally, the last thing for this section, for the reduce section, is just kind of to try to live a more minimalist life in general. So many things that we have, I feel like we only kind of have just because we think we're supposed to have it, right? We have this idea, especially as Americans, like I said, and also in other very high consumerist Western countries, that we have to have all of these things, right? We have to keep up with this image that is deemed to be like, the pivotal of success or the pivotal of happiness, or kind of, for lack of a better word, keeping up with the Joneses, right? Keeping up with the trends and all of these things that we're supposed to have. But again, do all of these things actually provide value to you? Are you even using all of the clothes in your closet? Do you even use all the things that you buy? Do these things actually help you in any way? Or are they just kind of taking up space, right, to eventually be thrown away? So these are key things that we need to ask ourselves. And it doesn't mean that you just need to go and buy a tiny home. I mean, if you want to do that, by all means, please do. But you would be so surprised at how just great it even feels mentally to clear out your space and only be surrounded by things that genuinely bring you joy. So the next category that we are going to explore, the third step in reducing your waste, is going to be to reuse, right? So this one is also kind of self-explanatory. What do we mean by reusing? We mean that we want to use items that can be reused, right? We want to use reusable items. So again, this can be water bottles, thermoses, straws, cups, cutlery. And there's also other things that you maybe may not think about as much, like reusable zipper bags or reusable mesh bags, things that you can pack lunches in, or, take to the grocery store, again, to, shop instead of using plastic bags. Another very valuable tool that I think is kind of often overlooked in the reusing section is jars, okay? Jars are your best friend if you let them be. You can get a pack of mason jars in pretty much any size from Walmart for literally less than $10 for a whole dozen. So it is honestly so affordable, and the great thing about these is that you can just keep using them again and again and again and again. I mean, it is pretty much limitless what you can use mason jars for. You can pack snacks in them, you can pack lunches, right? You can put things on the counter, you can use them to buy bulk in the grocery store, you can use them as drinking glasses, you can use them to store things in the freezer for bulk food storage. You can also use it for cosmetics, right? If you want to make your own homemade deodorant, your own homemade toothpaste, anything like that, you can definitely also use jars as well. Thinking about reusables also means thinking about how you can make substitutions to things that you are already using that are maybe not the most sustainable, right? So instead of using paper towels all the time and just constantly throwing away all this paper, right? Maybe you could try to make a switch to instead using towels, because again, those things can be washed and reused. This can also be applied to things like reusable handkerchiefs, reusable napkins. We just kind of want to, again, avoid anything that is just going to be a single use and throw away. Even things like makeup removers, right? There's literally towels that you can use that are like magic erasers that you can use for months, as opposed to something like a makeup wipe, again, that you just throw away after one use. Another really big thing is menstrual products. Ladies, we all know how that goes, right? You use a pad or a tampon once and then it's gone. It's going to the landfill. But there are so many options, thankfully. Now there's just more options every day for alternatives that honestly in the long run end up saving you money. It only makes sense, right? If you're having to buy things new every single time because you can only get one use out of them, it may not seem like a lot in the individual purchase, but it definitely adds up in time. And there's really no pressure with this, right? This is not to talk down or shame anyone who is doing these things, because the reality is this is kind of how we are programmed, right? As Americans, we're supposed to be these super consumers. But it's important that if we are going to be consuming things, we be consciously consuming, right? I keep bringing this up, but it's so important. The biggest thing with sustainability is just being a conscious consumer, being aware of what you're buying and the impact that it's actually having, right? And thinking about it beyond just your trash can. It's not just gone after you throw it in your trash, right? That thing is going to continue to exist, maybe for hundreds or even thousands of years, depending on what it's made out of. So it's very important to understand our real impact on the world and the waste that we are personally producing and how we can maybe, again, reduce that. And another side note to consider as far as reusing is that you also want to try to repair whenever it's possible, right? So often, we might just get one tear or one little rip in our shoe or in our clothes or whatever, and we're like, oh, well, that's done. Nice knowing you, clothes, right? But in reality, most of these things can actually be fixed fairly easily. Whatever it is, you can find somebody who can fix it. And there's always usually varying price ranges. So you can usually find a pretty decent deal if you just do a little bit of research. But it's important to ask yourself, can this be fixed? Can I continue using this if I just give a little bit more effort? I mean, sometimes it's even just cheaper to fix it than to buy a new one in the first place, right? So all of these things are important to keep in mind. Number 4 on the list, and the next thing to consider when you are trying to reduce your waste, the fourth R is recycle, right? So you might notice this is actually kind of far down on the list, right? This is like the 4th step. Recycle is the 4th step. Most people would probably think, girl, isn't that the first step? Isn't that what everyone talks about? Recycling is like the way. Well, that's kind of a misconception, because in reality, only certain things can actually be recycled, and also depending on where you live, there can be even more restrictions as far as what you can actually send to the recycling plant, right? And it has just been proven many times through statistics and research that recycling is just not the ultimate solution to waste reduction. All of these other things that we've already talked about, those honestly do make a much bigger difference than just recycling. Now, I'm not telling you not to recycle. It obviously is definitely helpful, and it does produce good, and it is good that people are recycling and that more people are becoming aware of this. But it's also important that if you are recycling, know what you can even recycle. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people try to recycle things that are just not recyclable, and it's not your fault. You might think it's recyclable, and it even might say on the thing, please recycle me, but that does not mean that you can recycle it. I know that's confusing, but just let me explain a little bit more. So basically, depending on where you live, most cities have different recycling plants that they actually send their recycling items to, right? So some cities are able to process things like glass, some things are not. Some cities take things like plastic bags and others do not. Even as far as plastic goes, there are so many different types of plastic. You might have noticed that on a lot of plastic items, there's that little number, right? It has the little recycling thing and then it has a number. Well, all of those numbers correspond to the different types of plastic. So your city might only be able to recycle, let's just say 1 through 4 types of plastic, right? Which is actually kind of a lot, but it might not be able to recycle 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever else. Another big thing is you cannot recycle something if it has any type of food waste in it. If you are going to recycle a can, you need to make sure that you wash out the can before you throw it in the recycling bin, because they are not going to be able to use it if it is too dirty. And yes, these things do go through cleansing processes, but if they're not able to get everything off of it, they're not going to be able to recycle it. Other things might even be made out of multiple different types of materials, right? For example, the milk that I buy, the actual milk jug itself is kind of made out of a type of paper, which technically would be recyclable. But the cap and the little part where you screw on is made out of plastic that is not recyclable, and therefore the whole thing is not recyclable. So you need to keep all these things in mind and just take, 10 minutes to Google what your city's recycling policies are, and usually they make it pretty clear for you what you can and what you cannot recycle, so that you can make sure that you are actually putting what you can and what you need to in the recycle bin. Another slightly problematic thing that comes with recycling is that oftentimes, even when things are recycled, they're cycled into low quality goods that end up being single use and then end up getting thrown away after that, right? So you might recycle something and that ends up turning into a single-use plastic or a single-use good, right? And it ends up just getting thrown away anyway. So that is why we say that recycling is important, and it's definitely not to minimize the impact that it does have, but you really want to be thinking about refusing, reducing, and reusing before you think about recycling. Finally, the last thing to consider when you are trying to reduce your waste is to rot the rest, right? So obviously we also purchase a lot of things that we throw away that are made out of biodegradable or biological material. So what does that mean? That means food, even certain types of paper, cardboard, maybe leaves, things like that, right? If you just finish cooking a bunch of vegetables and peeling a bunch of fruit and you have all of these leftover pieces, you can either reuse them again and maybe reuse them for another meal, or you can turn them into compost. So composting in itself is kind of an art, but it can really be very simple. It can be as easy as just collecting your compost in a box or in a bag or in a specialized little bin and just taking it outside and burying it with your plants, and you will not believe the kind of nutrients that it can give to your soil. You can also obviously buy professional composting bins, and those can get a little bit pricier depending on how much you're actually trying to compost, but you really don't even need to go to that extent to be able to do this. You can Google it and look into it, and there are so many different ways that you can try to compost, and that way the soil and the surrounding plants and the surrounding environment will actually be able to pull the nutrients out of those scraps. As opposed to if you just throw it away, it's just going to go to the dump or a landfill and probably never actually have any interaction with the soil and therefore really be able to actually provide it nutrients. And it is something that is very simple and ultimately does not take that much time, but really does make such a big difference. So those are the 5 R's of reducing your waste. So what are they again? Let's just go through them real quick again just to refresh. Of course, first we are refusing. That is the first step. Refuse things that you don't need. Second, we are reducing, right? Reducing what we are using, reducing our reliance on problematic industries, reducing the amount of wasteful things that we are purchasing in the first place. Third thing is reuse, right? We are going to try to reuse things as much as we can. We are going to repair things when we can, and we are going to choose reusable, sustainable options instead of single-use goods. Fourth, of course, we have recycle. When we can recycle things, we of course do want to do that. It's definitely better than throwing something away. but we do want to be aware of what we can recycle in our city or area where we live, right? Very important. And finally, we have rot, right? So we want to make sure that any of the leftover food scraps or biodegradable things that we have, we are trying to compost those. So that is a summary of everything we talked about today. I really hope that you all enjoyed this video and that you got some really helpful tips and some ways that you can try to make your life more sustainable. Like I said, it is so easy to think that as an individual you don't really have an impact, but I'm telling you guys, if everyone just thought that they had an impact, the whole world would be changed. So it's so important not to diminish your own power and your own ability to really truly make a difference in trying to improve this world. When you support companies that are producing really good things for the environment or reusable goods, you are helping them grow, right? You are helping more people become aware of this, and you are also inspiring the people around you to maybe make that decision as well. So it is just a win-win for everyone, for us and for the earth. So what more could we ask for? I really hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you have any other suggestions that maybe I did not mention, something that you have found that is really helpful for you to produce less waste, please leave a comment down below. I would love to hear it, and I would also love for you to share it with everyone else as well, so we can all become a little bit more educated and of course conscious about our consumption, right? That being said, if you did like this video, please do give it a big like. I really appreciate that. I absolutely love making videos, so it really does mean a lot to me when you guys do like these videos. And of course, if you are not already subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button right now, okay? I make new videos every single day, Monday through Friday, so there's plenty of content for you to binge, plenty of different type of content, so who doesn't love that? You'll never get bored, I promise, all right? That being said, I'm sending you all the good vibes and all of the good, healing, sustainable energy. We are going to save this planet together, people, all right? We got this. I believe we can do it, please. We can do it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!